Guess which political party is not going to be in charge anytime soon? So uh, I'm talking about the Democrats in the States, right? So before people get mad at me, I just want you to put your, or at least try to put your preconceived notions about Trump aside from a second, for a second. And for our host here today, I would ask you to maybe put yourself in the shoes of an American, right? So don't look at this situation from the Canadian, from a perspective of a Canadian, but look at it from like the perspective of American. If you're, let's say, especially a swing voter who's sometimes votes Democrat, sometimes votes Republican, or at least someone who's willing to vote for either party, on how you would interpret this situation. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the Trump speech in front of the joint session of Congress. This is like, I don't know, this is like a tradition that Trump maybe created, because like it's not very usual that the president would address Congress this early. Usually it's like the State of the Union address is like much later in the term usually. But Trump decided to address a joint session of Congress in front of both House Republicans and House Democrats. And boy, was it a show. So I watched the entire thing live as it unfolded, so you guys didn't have to. I don't know if you guys watched it, but I watched it. And again, I would beckon you to just put your preconceived notions about Trump aside for a second. Just, pretend that he's just like a random president and not the controversial figure that he is for a second. And I think that you'll find the behavior of the Democrats to be, absolutely disrespectful, disgraceful, disgusting, whatever you want word you want to use. And I'm really like not trying to be partisan here. And I'll present the story, and then maybe you guys can make your decision and disagree with me if you like. But let me just present to you like kind of the first part, right? So Trump, when he was making this speech, this part I think hit especially hard. He said, I look at the Democrats in front of me and I realize there's nothing I can say to make them happy, stand, smile, or applaud. So the Democrats were just seated there, and they have these like weird little auction signs that said like false. Whenever Trump said anything, they would wave the sign that says this is false, right? Again, like they'd remain seated and refuse to applaud for anything. And Trump was like, I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest level ever. And these people sitting right here, pointing to the Democrats, will not clap, stand, or cheer for these achievements. They won't, no matter what. 5 times I've been up here. So not only will they not applaud or cheer for Trump for anything, the 78-year-old congressman, Al Green, who's a Democrat, was waving a cane and shouting down Trump as Trump was trying to speak. And eventually he was so disruptive that he had to be removed by the sergeant at arms under the orders of the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. So, yeah, this was, not great of a look for Democrats, if I do say so myself, right? And the point at which Green was shouting down Trump, I think that was also important. So Trump wasn't even saying anything controversial. So if you look at the full clip, Trump was just kind of bragging about how he won the election and how the Republicans won the House and the Senate. And sure, like you might not like him for bragging about it all the time. It's like, you won. Hey, we get it. We know. But I mean, I guess, is it right for Al Green to just like dispute like is he disputing the results? I'm not saying that he is, but like he's just trying to shout down Trump as Trump is saying that, hey, I won the election. It's like, who are you shouting at? Are you shouting at the voters who voted for him? I just found it kind of ridiculous, and eventually like he had to be removed from the House floor. And this, it's not just me saying this, right? Like this type of behavior is widely seen as inappropriate. So this next kind of post was on CNN, right? So CNN did a poll, and 80% of CNN viewers found that Al Green's behavior was inappropriate. And we know that CNN is a very left-leaning media corporation, right? So the people who are watching CNN are probably more than half of them for sure are Democrats. So even Democrats are not really in favor of what Al Green did. And furthermore, it was there was one point at which Trump was honoring the mother of a victim who was murdered by illegal immigrants, right? So this is a picture of Alexis Nungari and her daughter, who was like, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something, was killed by illegal immigrants. And uh, Trump was saying how, like, this is Democrats' open border policy that caused this, and they like honored her as like the mother of the victim, and then the Democrats, well, I believe, and not just me, but like from Alexis herself, were saying that how the Democrats were just absolutely disrespectful by refusing to honor Trump or her, or just applaud or anything like that, right? Or honor the memory of her daughter. So that was another thing. And then another thing, Trump also gave an honorary Secret Service title to this 13-year-old kid who survived cancer. And then this was the reaction of the Dems. They were just seated, refused to applaud, and yeah, just it just completely ignored the kid as if like it never happened, right? Um, and then they also remained seated for the families of Laken Riley, who was also a victim of an illegal immigrant who assaulted and then murdered her while she was like on a jog near like the University, I think, of Texas. And then the families of Corey Camporate, who was the victim of the Trump assassination attempt. So remember back in July, somebody shot at Trump, and then it missed Trump by a few inches, but unfortunately it hit Corey, who passed away, and he was a firefighter and a father. So Trump invited his family to like in front of Congress to honor his memory, and the Democrats also refused to applaud or honor, acknowledge the families of Corey Campriarte. And then lastly, after this whole speech, Representative Maxine Waters, Democrat, was saying how she's going down this road of like semi conspiracy theorists, in my opinion, suggesting that Elon Musk with this high tech ass may have hacked the election somehow with Starlink. I know like this is like a conspiracy theory that's been thrown around. It just, to me, it just seems like the Democrats have become, and maybe they weren't always this way, right? Lately, especially, they've just become a very unserious party with completely unserious people, right? Like who doesn't like applaud a 13-year-old kid with cancer? Like I don't know. This, and again, this is not just me saying it, right? So if you look at the next part, CBS did an instant poll of the Trump speech, and 76% of viewers approved of the speech. And CNN also did a poll, and 69% had a positive reaction. And again, CNN, CBS, those are more liberal-leaning publications, right? And again, don't take it from me, take it from Dan Tarantine, who's a Democrat political analyst. And he said, after watching the speech, I love my party, but tonight was a new low. I get silence on this or that policy, and the raw politics of the base's anger. But for not a single Democrat to stand and applaud a boy's brave battle with cancer or a man's admission to West Point was a classless disgrace. And maddeningly, the overall Trump speech was politically good. There were political holes that could be exploited, juvenile taunts that voters hate, and comical lies. But much of that will be buried by our self-inflicted stupidity. And if you look at the polls, this is a poll that goes all the way. This has been an ever-running poll that Real Clear Politics, they aggregate a bunch of different polls on whether the country, America, whether Americans believe that America is going on the right track or the wrong track. And overall, still it's still net negative, right? Still -9. So more Americans believe that the country's on the wrong track rather than the right track. But look at this like latest huge spike, right? So all of that spike was since the Trump inauguration. So an ever increasing number of Americans believe that America is on the right track after Trump was inaugurated, despite all the market turmoil and this and that, and people criticizing Trump. Like his approval is going up, and I wonder at some point if this is going to flip positive. Like the signs, like the trend is definitely indicating that there will be a point in the not too distant future where, for the first time, basically since like 2009, since Obama was first inaugurated for his first term, that more Americans feel that the country is going on the right track compared to the wrong track, because this hasn't flipped positive since 2009, as you can see. So this is just kind of all the info that I had. So my first question to you guys, did you guys watch the speech, or did you watch at least the highlights? And even if you didn't watch the full speech, just based off of the info that I just provided you, what do you think? Like, what is wrong with the Democrats? Why are they being this way? And like, do you think this strategy is going to work, or do they need to like change drastically before the midterms? Because I think you guys already know what my answer is. I think that they're gonna like get absolutely destroyed in the midterms, and everyone who hates Trump they're just gonna have to scream louder because the Democrats are not gonna give them a run for his money on either the midterms or the next presidential election. I know it won't be Trump for the next presidential election, but it'll be probably JD Vance or some other Republican. And even then, I don't know if the Democrats, if they don't pivot soon, they're not going to be able to feel the, candidate that most Americans will accept to actually give the Republicans a run for their money in the presidential election in 2028 either. So again, this is just my opinion. Feel free to disagree, but I'm going to toss the question back to you guys. What do you guys think of the speech, and what do you guys think of everything that I just said?
Had its entertaining moments. It was also very silly, like usual with Trump, and he got a few good zingers on the Democrats. Um, I think that my takeaway is that the Democrats are completely broken. Like they're broken. The combination of like Trump derangement syndrome and Elon derangement syndrome is completely like leveled this party to the ground. Like they have nothing. They have no core economic issue. I don't even know what the Democrats were even protesting at the when Al Green stood up. I don't even know what he was yelling at. They had no clear message. They literally had like Elon things on the sign. So not like half of their protests are protesting Elon and not Trump. Like they were bad enough with Trump derangement syndrome over the last like 8 years, but the combination of the two is just like there's like no logic to it. Now we're talking now the script has flipped. Now the Democrats are once again talking about the election was stolen. Like first Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen, and then Trump said it was stolen, and now the Democrats are one day and now they're saying Elon stole the election. So like in 2016, like first of all I'll say like the Democrats like I listen to like a few Democrat podcasts and clips online. I listen to things that like nonpartisan Bitcoiners and like investors are saying who are talking about politics and podcast hosts and stuff. And I feel like everybody's on the same set of memes except for Democrats. Like the meme that everybody's on, like the Simpsons meme everybody's on is like Elon's basically Hank Scorpio, but like the Democrats are operating on the meme that Elon's like Mr. Burns. So like they're operating in different realities. Like they honestly believe, like I honestly think they believe that like Donald Trump's a fascist and a fascist has been elected to the government. So they feel that just standing up and like raising paddles that say Elon steals, like I don't know, they just like they thought that would connect. And like in 2016, the Democrats had like all the top tech CEOs, including Elon, behind them, like shilling from them essentially. They had Mark Zuckerberg, they had Elon. In 24, all those tech CEOs were sitting at Trump's inauguration. So that really shows you how much has shifted in U.S. politics in the last. In like the Silicon Valley world is a big part of the Democratic coalition for success. So like it shouldn't be, oh, they're just billionaires. It's not just billionaires. There's a whole community of technologists that live in that area that think in a very similar way. In 2016, they had Bernie trying to launch like a populist campaign to essentially take over the party, and they crushed it. In 2020, Bernie was trying to launch a populist campaign. Andrew Yang was trying to launch a populist campaign, and Tulsi Gabbard tried to launch a populist campaign. And they're all, I mean, Andrew Yang left the party. Tulsi Gabbard is now working for Trump, and Bernie has like kind of lost a lot of credibility. Like people just kind of make fun of him and don't like if you look at any comment Bernie makes on X and see all the comments that come, like he's lost a lot of credibility in the last few years. So like in a sense, I think what the Democrats have done is by destroying like any kind of organic populist movement from rising in the party, they've destroyed themselves. And I don't think they're going to smarten up before the midterms. I think that there's a chance after the midterms that they get smart enough that they get defeated hard enough that somebody like John Fetterman could take over the party and bring them in a new direction. But like right now, it seems fairly hopeless. Like I don't see how they pick it up. I don't see how they come back into power in the next 4 years. Anything can happen in politics, but I don't see a midterm win happening at all. No way.
Yeah, I think this is just another symptom of the U.S.'s, well, maybe not just the U.S., but the political spheres in general seem to be getting a lot more polarized as time goes on. And it's to the point where it feels like both sides are no longer living in the same world, in the same universe. It's gone from like people were kind of like overlapping, on both sides. They were like, oh, we mostly agree. To I feel like just completely separate, like, I don't know, like ranges of people's beliefs. And I feel like the Democrats in particular right now, they're so, well, at least in this instance, they're so like in their kind of space of like everything Trump says is bad. Therefore, they can't, applaud for the anything he says, whether it's good, bad, or anything. It's just kind of like they're just completely living in a different world than the Republicans. And I don't think this is healthy from either side's perspectives, because like from a Democrat perspective, you're never going to be happy with anything Trump does, because he's going to be perceived as, or at least if you're in that side of the sphere, you're never going to be happy because like everything is going to be perceived as like with a negative fashion. And then on the same foot, you're never going to be happy from a Republican with anything that the Democrats do, because it's the same thing, right? Like when Biden and Harris were in power, if they did anything good, the Republicans weren't usually sitting there being, yeah, let's go, America. And I just feel like in the past, there was much more unity between the different parties. And maybe this is just a feeling, harkening back to simpler times. But I really do feel like the politics now, or particularly in the States, and in Canada, it's just gotten really really split up. And so people just don't have that meet in the middle moment where it's like, yeah, okay, I can agree that, having an open border is not a good thing, for example. I feel like this is something where it's like a country I feel like everyone should be able to agree that a country should know who is coming into their country. That's why we have passports. That's why we have a way to check. It's just so that the country knows who's there. I think most people would agree that people should be able to move back and forth between countries. But I think people also are like, yeah, I want to know who's going to be coming in and leaving my country, right? So I think most people agree with this sentiment, but then there's been so much separation that, like, at this point it's no longer about having a border. It's like now, for Democrats, it's like, it's like, do we got to help these people, these illegal immigrants? They just want a better life and stuff, and like, they do, but we need to know who's coming into the country. So it's like the like the worlds we live in, it seems like it is just, there's just a complete disconnect where everyone seems to be living in a different world, and it's like, who's really right? Because like on the Republican side, obviously the majority of the illegal immigrants that are coming into the US are contributing members of society who are contributing billions of dollars to the American economy. But there will be some bad actors who will be doing bad things. The Republican side tends to really emphasize the bad actors and be like, oh, these cartel dudes come in, bring the drugs and kill people and murder stuff. And so that's also not reality either. So it's like there's this whole I would say like disconnect where the parties just can't seem to really figure out the middle ground. And I think the people, the most of the American people actually tend to reside somewhere more in the middle than in one extreme or the other. And yet both parties seem to be insisting on moving towards one extreme more than the other. And I mean, you can argue on who's moved more or less. It's really hard to actually nail down exactly where a party sits in the grand scheme of things, because you can be like, oh, but they move more left on this, but more right on this. Like Trump may be less right than some of the other past leaders on some things, since banning abortion was no longer on the table this year or something, if I recall correctly, or this past election. But it's like, how do we gauge exactly where they are? And so I think that the majority of Americans are showing that the Democrats in this instance were being unfair is really what it comes down to. They were existing in too far in their ideology for the majority of the American population to identify with them. So in that like kind of analogy of the two sides on the left and the right, with the American people kind of being somewhere in the middle, I feel like most people were like, this is stuff that you should be, applauding or showing some sort of solidarity to, like the child with cancer, etc. Whether you think that Trump is good or bad. And I just think the Democrats are existing in such a disconnected world from the Republicans that they aren't willing to identify when the Republicans are talking about something that's nonpartisan, and that they should really just show solidarity. And I think this is really something that politics in general, like, I feel like there needs to be a shift back towards a more normalized perspective where everyone is like, yeah, let's have things, let's be happy, and let's not make everything so ideologically driven. It just doesn't seem like it's not what people really want, and it's not really going to drive people to vote for them. And I think in this time frame right now, we're kind of in a point where, love him or hate him, Trump is probably more so being perceived as reasonable by the American people, while the Democrats are more so existing in the unreasonable sphere. And I think I don't think that's necessarily a positive review of Trump per se. I think it's more so that the Democrats have kind of they've gone a little bit too too. I don't know what the word is. Like there's something just off with their priorities right now.
Like, I think the word you're looking for might be radical or extreme, which I know people blast Trump for calling the Democrats radical, but I don't know. I think what they've been doing is pretty radical, right? Like supporting open borders, supporting like, you know, all this, like, you know, trans people in sports who have like a physical advantage. Again, I'm not anti-trans. I'm just saying, like, if you're born a man, you have a physical advantage over your opponents. It's like a question of fairness, and I think they turned it into a culture war issue on a lot of other issues.
But I'm not actually going for radical. I think I'm going for more like their perspective is unclear because it seems to be basically the reverse of the Republicans. Is kind of more so what I'm getting at. Not necessarily like a clear. I'm not even going after them for being too far left or like, you know, the sports or whatever. Like it's like really that's just a sign of the party ideology. I'm more so like they seem to be really focused on being against whatever the Republicans are for, just just across the board, and that's kind of more so what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it's Trump derangement syndrome, for
Yeah,
a
Trump
lack of a
derangement.
better term, right? Like, I know, like, people make fun of that and make it into a meme. It's like, oh, what Trump derangement syndrome? What are you talking about? Like, this is literally an example of this that's on full display on national TV for like 2 hours straight that we just experienced. It's like pure, unfiltered Trump derangement syndrome, to the point where they hate him so much that they can't even applaud like a 13-year-old kid with cancer. Sunil, I know you've been dying to speak.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna add to that. Like they just, because Tristan was looking for a word. It's like they worship crisis to me. Like they're always in a crisis. You know when you have a friend that's always in a crisis, and you're just like, when are you not in a crisis? That's the Democrats. It's like you guys are always worked up about something. You can never chill out about anything. You're never happy about anything. You can't even clap for a kid with cancer. It's just bad. So I don't know. That's just like I just wanted to add to that. But I mean, I guess I'll add a couple of predictions, and that's just that I think that the direction index that you posted on the Real Clear Politics, I think it's going to go positive if Trump has a positive stock market, and that could happen like within weeks. And I think that remember my prediction in the bonus episode in January? I said Trump would hit somewhere near 70% approval rating. I mean, this is not an approval rating poll, but I think it reflects the energy I expect to happen over the next few months.